Hi, day 11. We are on the 23rd of December, people. It's very nearly Christmas, and there are only two films left to watch. Because if you remember rightly, I said at the beginning Christmas Day is the Christmas Day BBC One film. 12 Days of Christmas ends on Christmas Eve. So, 23rd, and we are going for one of my favourite films of all time. And actually, a fair chunk of it doesn't happen at Christmas. Like, quite a substantial amount happens at other times of the year. And the film that I'm going to tell you to watch today is It's the Wonderful Life. It's brilliant. It's honestly brilliant. James Stewart is one of my favourite actors. I've had quite a lot of my favourite actors in this bunch of picks, and if you watch these films, you'll see why they were some of my favourite actors. Yeah, It's a Wonderful Life is a classic. It was a bit of a failure when it first came out. Actually, it didn't do very well, but it became a bit of a classic because the royalties or something on it ran out, I believe, in like the 70s. So it got put on TV all the time because TV companies didn't actually have to pay anybody to show it. So it was a cheap rainy afternoon kind of thing. They just put it on and people started watching it, and it became a bit of a tradition that people would watch it at Christmas. And I think rightly so. I only maybe saw this film for the first time probably about 4 or 5 years ago, and I properly howled laughing at some of the bits in it, and then I properly sat there going, the bits that you were supposed to sit doing that. It's a phenomenally well made film. It's absolutely brilliant. Um, yeah, so James Stewart plays George Bailey, who is a man living in a small town. He lives with his parents and his brother, and he has foregone going to college because he has worked at his dad's saving and loans company so that they can save up enough money to send the younger kid to college so that he can come back and earn some money and send him to college. You know, it's a very haphazard way about of doing it, but he's agreed to sacrifice himself so that his brother Harry can go off and study, and he'll stay and man the fort and live at home and look after mum and dad and all the rest of it. And he goes off to Harry's high school leaving party. It's like post graduation party, kind of last night in town type job. He goes off to that with Harry, and he meets Mary. Well, he re-meets Mary. He's met Mary as a kid. As a kid, he worked in a drugstore, kind of ice cream parlor type place, and she used to come in there all the time, and he used to serve her ice cream. And he used to work for a man who, when his son died um, in the war, he was so upset he accidentally put poison in some of the tablets, and George stopped him poisoning some kid in town, and he's always had a soft spot for George ever since, that he's protected him from that. Yeah, George has always looked out for Harry. George has got a gammy ear, he's deaf in one ear, because he fell through the ice one winter in rescuing Harry. When Harry fell through the ice, George jumped in after him and saved his life, which is pretty major because George was like 12 or whatever at the time. Um, yeah, so he's basically an all-round good egg. So he meets Mary at this dance. They get into a Charleston competition. It's brilliant. Some kid opens up the floor because the floor's on top of the school's swimming pool. They're dancing real close to the edge. You think, are they going to go in? No, they're not. Yeah, they are. No, they're not. And then all of a sudden they fall in, and they're still dancing in the water, and they're laughing their head off, and they're clearly having a whale of a time. And all the other kids jumping after them, and everyone's laughing and joking. And it backfires on this kid that's trying to split them up. Anyhow, he's walking her home. They're both in like whatever clothes they can salvage. He's got a baseball uniform that's like 9 sizes too big. She's in the school's kind of dressing gown or whatever, and they're chatting. And I guarantee you, at some point, you will have seen or heard the clip of James Stewart saying, "What do you want, Mary? Do you want the moon? I'll throw a lasso around it and pull it down." And she says, "Yeah, okay, I'll take it." And they're having a bit of like a flirt and everything. And midway through this, the sort of friends and the local doctor pulls up and says, "George, you need to come home real quick. Your dad's had a stroke. He ain't gonna last. You need to come." So his dad dies that night, and George doesn't know what to do. He has to man the fort. He has to take over the savings loan, even though he doesn't want to. He's got no intention of kind of taking over that. He just wants to work to get him and Harry through school. And yeah, so Harry goes off to school while he mans the fort of the savings and loan. Now in the town, there's also another kind of savings and loan, but it's more corporate, if you will, and it's owned by Mr. Potter. And Mr. Potter is Lionel Barrymore, and he's basically an awful man. He's a really bad egg. He puts the rents up real high in his properties. He's like a slum landlord, if you will, whereas the Bailey Savings and Loan is much more of a cooperative bank type setup, whereby he will lend you so much and work out what your salary is, how much you can afford to pay over what term, whereas Potter, it's very much a this is the rent, you pay it or I evict you type thing. So yeah, the Bailey Savings and Loan is a bit more liberal, if you like, a bit more of a building society as opposed to a bank. So yeah, he ends up taking over that. He's got plans that he'll then go to college and go travelling. He's going to go see the world. He's going to go on like paddle steamers and trains and go all over the place. That's his goal. And when he gets back, Harry's supposed to be taking over savings and loans so that he can do that. It's Harry's turn. Harry comes back with a wife in tow, and the wife has a dad that runs a company that is giving him like a middle management job in. So George is stuck with the savings and loan again. He can't go anywhere. Yeah, he's basically lumbered. So he goes off, sees Mary again. They end up getting together, and yeah, they end up getting together basically. On the day that they get married, there's a run on the savings and loan and on the bank. There's for whatever reason, everybody wants all the money out, and he sits there and he goes, right, who wants what? Who needs what money to tide you through the next coming weeks? Do you actually need all your money out? He manages to save the bank by talking people around and saying, look, give me a bit more time. You need $20 to get through the week. Here's $20 to get through the week. We'll reassess Monday. You want this amount? You can have this amount. And then all of a sudden, all his honeymoon fund's gone. And he comes out of there and he's like, oh God, where's my wife? Where are we going? We're supposed to be on honeymoon. We haven't got a house. We're going to go back to my mum's. What do I do? So the two taxi drivers, who are brilliantly called Bert and Ernie, and it's an urban myth that Bert and Ernie on the Sesame Street were named after them, but I would have loved it if that was the case, but it's not. They take him to this ramshackle old house that him and Mary threw stones at when they were kids and made wishes. And obviously their wishes were that they were going to live there together, and she's bought it. And he goes back there, and yeah, that's where they're living. There's a brilliant bit where it's so sort of run down that every time he goes upstairs, the knob on the top of the stairs falls off, which happens in my house as well. And I've got zero intention of having it fixed because it just reminds me of It's a Wonderful Life every time I put my hand on there and it wobbles. I think that's brilliant. I'm keeping that forever. I'll love it. Yeah, little aside there, but that's what happens. And no matter how much of the house they fix, they never get around to doing this knob on the banisters, and that makes me laugh. So one night, Uncle Billy, who runs the savings and loan with George, he is going to go pay in like $8,000 into the bank of their bank account, and he loses the money and it ends up in Potter's lap. And Potter's like, oh my God, I am having this. He sends like an audit around who they can't find the money, they don't know what to do, and George becomes really depressed because he thinks he's going to go to jail. And he snaps at Mary, he snaps at the kids, he shouts at his daughter's teacher for letting her come home with her coat unfastened, and now she's got a cold and she's in bed and she's like, really ill, and George snaps at the teacher. And George goes to a bridge and decides to throw himself off because his life insurance will save everybody, and he just thinks it's the right thing to do. He can't see why he was ever born. He's achieved nothing he wanted to achieve. What's the point? So he throws himself off this bridge, but he gets saved by an old man that turns out to be his angel, his guardian angel, who's called Clarence, who is not a trained guardian angel yet. He hasn't got his wings. He's an angel second class. George is his chance to get his wings. If he saves George, he can get his wings. And he basically says to George, right, you think you haven't made an impact, you think you're not important, I'm going to show you what your life would be like, or what the town would be like if you were not in this town. what would happen if you weren't here. And he shows him. So Harry is coming back from war this Christmas because he's a decorated war veteran. He's a pilot. He's saved loads of lives. He's got a congressional medal. He's had dinner at the White House. Everyone in Bedford Falls is really, really proud of Harry. So he shows him that, and Harry's dead. Harry died when he fell through the ice because there was no George to save him. So nobody saved all those people because George wasn't there to save Harry. So Harry fell through the ice and died at the age of about 8 or 9. And George is like, oh, right, so actually all those people died. It's pretty sad. So he takes him to town. Town's called Pottersville because when Dad died, there was nobody to stand up to Potter in the savings and loan. It just became Potter's kind of playground. He could do what he wanted there, and the town's run down. Violet Bick, who George kind of helps out with a loan, who was his old school friend, she is working in like kind of this nightclub as like a dancing girl, and she's getting arrested by Vice Squad. Mary's an old maid. That's the bit that depresses me. Mary's an old maid with glasses who works in the library because she hasn't got George to marry. Mum had to take in lodgers after Dad died, and she's running a really horrific old boarding house. She's a bit of a lush. Everybody's just a bit worse off because they haven't got George in their life. George didn't stop the drugstore owner from putting tablets, the poison tablets, in the delivery and sending it to whoever it was that was ill. So he's the town bum because he's been in prison all these years and is basically done for like manslaughter rather than obviously murder. It wasn't sort of intentional, but yeah, he's got done. He's a bum. Nobody will speak to this guy because he's like an all-round bad egg. He's killed somebody. And George starts to realise that actually he's made a massive impact on this town and on people's lives, and by rescuing the savings and loan, nobody's living in slums and people aren't having a really rough time of it. People are actually having a better quality of life because George exists, and because George was born, people are okay, and people have been saved because he was there to save Harry. And so yeah, he has a change of heart and says he wants to live, he wants to carry on, he wants to sort everything out. And yeah, Clarence saves him, and he runs all the way home. You've probably seen the scene. He's running through the main street of Bedford Falls, like shouting Merry Christmas, everybody, and there you are, your old savings and loan, and there you are, drugstore, and he's really pleased to see everything. He's even pleased to see Potter because it doesn't matter, he's back. He can sort this thing out. And when he gets home, Harry's home. Everyone in town has come round his house. They've heard about the trouble about losing the money, and they've basically got a big pot and put all the loose change in it. All like here's the $20 you loaned me that week when you could have let us go under. Here's the money that you did this. Here's this, here's that, here's the other. Everyone's chucking the money in the pot, and he's got more than enough to cover to sort out the discrepancy. This is a Christmas gift. Everybody's happy, and yeah, and then there's a really famous line where little Zuzu says, every time a bell rings, an angel gets his wings, and the bell's ringing on the tree. And George is like, well done, Clarence, well done. So yeah, happy ending all round. It's an absolute classic. It's an absolute blinder, and I've spoken quite a lot. Like, in this blog is much longer than all the others, if you notice, because I really, really love this film. 2/3 of it has absolutely naff all to do with Christmas, and actually the main theme of it could be set at any point. It doesn't have to be set at Christmas. It could be set in the middle of summer for all anybody cares. It's just the fact that it is Christmas kind of makes it that extra something else. And it's a brilliant film. Even if you didn't watch it at Christmas, even if you watched it May Bank Holiday, it'd still be an absolute blinder because Donna Reed's brilliant in it. James Stewart's brilliant in it. Lionel Barrymore's brilliant in it. It's just a classic for such a good reason. There's a lot going on, and there's a lot to take away from it. And so many films and TV programmes and stuff have played with the whole what if I'd never been born, what would happen, ever since It's a Wonderful Life. So many TV shows that I've ever watched have had at least one episode where some character's having a crisis and they see what life would be like without them. And it's all thanks to It's a Wonderful Life that they were like the first film or whatever to put that in there, and it makes you think what would happen if you weren't around, if you'd never been born. What little impact actually would create a large impact, like Harry not saving all the people because George didn't save Harry. And it's just quite affirming that all these little things mean something and add up. And yeah, it's an absolute masterclass from James Stewart. It can make you want to cry and it can make you howl laughing. And I'll tell you what, he don't get better than he is in this film. Definitely don't get any better.